Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Mother's Day tribute where we take the time to honor mothers. And whether you're a biological mother or a stepmom or you're an auntie or an older woman that's fulfilling the motherly role, today we salute you. This episode is entitled Architecture Moms because today we celebrate not just being a woman in the field of architecture, but being a professional and a mother. I chose this topic today because I see quite a number of young women feeling the need to choose between motherhood and being a professional working woman. So some wearing both hats, but struggling to maintain harmony because both are demanding. One writer puts it this way: motherhood is amazing, and then it's really hard, and then it's indescribable, and then it's everything in between. So hold on to the good, breathe through the bad, and welcome the wildest and most wonderful ride of your life. Now, here's the thing: I am not a mother, but I could only imagine what this journey must be like. But if you're a mother, you could put one word in the comment section to describe what it's like. If you know someone that's a mother and you've heard them describe it, put one word in the comment section below to describe that journey. But today's guest knows what the ride is like. She is a mother of two boys, ages 13 and 11, and she can tell you what her personal journey has been like. She's also a registered architect and has been in this practice for 20 years, exploring and refining the principles of sustainability. She was sustainability director for 8 years at ACLA Architecture in Trinidad, and she is one of the first lead APs in the region, and she's a founding member and the past president of the Trinidad and Tobago's Green Building Council. She recently relocated to Florida to work at a world-class practice, producing meaningful and resilient architecture. So today, I give you the award-winning architect and sustainability manager at Glagovic Studio, Mandilee Newton. Mandilee.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yes.
For that very nice introduction. Sounds good.
Yes. I was
wondering who that person was.
I just want to make sure I get the name of the studio correct. Glagovic.
Glagovic, yeah.
Okay.
Glagovic. Correct. Yeah, you did good. You did good.
Great. So I want to start actually with a quote from you, if I may. And it says, architecture has the potential to be powerfully transformative. And then you went on to say, and I am deeply interested in exploring its ability to find meaningful solutions for sustainable habitation. Unpack that for us. And I want to start with just giving us a some background information about why architecture, why sustainability, and how did this journey begin. So unpack that statement and give us some history.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Lizelle, and it's always lovely to see you. And thank you for what you're doing with this podcast series. And I look forward to many more to come. My background really is that my father was an architect, and I adored my father. We were very close, and my earliest memories are of being on construction sites, or seeing my father's drawing board, or seeing him with blueprints in his hands. And during summers I would intern in his office, and had a lot of exposure to the practice and profession of architecture. My mom eventually managed his practice as well, so it was a family business.
Okay.
And children hear a lot from the overheard conversation, so growing up around them talking about practice and talking about contractors and consultants and built up quantities and these things, I think it impacted me. So that is how I was exposed to the profession. And I am my father's only daughter. He has 5 children. I have 4 brothers, and I'm the only one that did architecture. So that is how I got into the profession. And I joke sometimes and tell people I'm a born architect because it's something that I really love. I enjoy doing it. And I'm an architect to the end. It's really a way to see things, it's a way of seeing the world. And we're very lateral thinkers. We think about the big picture. We're big picture thinkers. And a lot of us have a very strong sense of social justice and strong social conscience. And it's our training, it's the training of the history of humanity. I think that impacts that. And many architects like myself, we're deeply interested in finding social solutions. Architecture is not just about building, it's about ideas and making the world a better place, to look at it in a kind of utopian model. So my dad, all of his career, he did public projects, and a lot of it was social housing. And I think I inherited that sense of social justice from him.
Okay.
As far as my sustainability background, I grew up in Jamaica, and I grew up in the 80s, and that was at a time when things were really difficult in Jamaica. And we imported all of our fuel. So energy costs were high, and the cost of energy impacts the cost of water as well, because it takes energy to supply water. So, we grew up with conservation in mind at all times, and I also lived outside of the city in a kind of a semi-suburban area. So, our access to utilities may have been a little bit different to those who were actually closer to the city. So, we had frequent brownouts, frequent water disruptions. So
Right.
I had that consciousness from quite early. And I think in Jamaica too, there was a general consciousness of, anti-litter campaigns. And I do believe, I just had an interest in the natural world from quite early. Love forests, love going to the ocean, the rivers. Jamaica has a very beautiful interior, as you probably well know. So
Yes.
I think it's a combination to learn to live resourcefully and, trying to live harmoniously with nature. Where I grew up as well was in the mountains, surrounded by gardens, lush gardens.
Oh, wow.
And my mother's a plant lover, Habitation is just another way of saying living harmoniously with nature.
Yeah.
And powerful transformation really has to do with that component of creating a better world.
Okay. Wow. So
Yeah.
So, in terms of, well, that's it. That's your start. That's your journey. That's where you came from. And I just want to transition into the motherhood aspect of it now. I'm your mother of two. One, they're almost teenagers. 13. Well, yeah, one is a teenager, and one is almost there. So I know that's a different ball game. So I've heard I'm not a mother.
Right.
Share with us the challenges faced, the victories won along this journey. Being an architecture mom, I use the term architecture mom to describe, being a professional architect, but then still being a mother, and a mother is a full-time job. So tell us about the challenges, the victories, and how did you balance or harmonize the two?
Okay. Right. So as you said, it's about balance, right? And, obviously I grew up in a family structure, with a mother and a father and siblings. And, I think the relationship between my parents deeply impacted me. My parents were, they had there was so much love in their relationship, right? And there was mutual respect. And they filled traditional roles, but they also, embraced modernity. So my mom was a very independent, liberated woman, but she still had a softness and tenderness to her in her relationship with my dad. And then my dad was a very strong, very outspoken, very masculine man, in the Jamaican stereotype. But he still came to the relationship with a lot of respect and tenderness as well, and affection. So they met each other halfway at all times. And I mean, every relationship comes with its challenges, and I saw them fight through and push through challenges together, but always at mutual respect. So it impacted me, and I think it led to me finding my life partner in a similar structure. And my life partner is also an architect, and I think that two architects together can understand each other. And our conversations get a little esoteric sometimes, but we understand each other, and I think that's helped a lot in our relationship. When I was a child, my dad, he worked really hard, and he would work on weekends as well, but he had to go into an office. Architecture came with tools, the drawing board and the parallel rule and the big tools that you couldn't just lift up and take home.
Yes.
But now everything is on the computer. So, my husband works 7 days a week too, but he's on the computer and he's present physically, maybe not like mentally fully present, but he's present physically. So it's a different dynamic, which is really nice. And another thing I learned from my dad too is, if you have to work weekends out of town, take your family with you. So that's what I've done. If I was on a project that was out of town and I had to overnight, as much as I could, possibly once it was practical, I would take my family with me. So,
Wow.
They'd be hanging out while I'd be in meetings or what have you. And that my father, we lived in Kingston, but I remember once when I was a kid, he had a project in Montego Bay, which was a 4-hour drive, when we were younger. And we would all bundle up and we would spend the weekend in Montego Bay. While he was at his meetings, we'd be at the beach with mom. So I practice, I live my life in the same way. And so balance is about, finding ways to navigate that dynamic. Having a really supportive partner as well. My husband is very non-traditional in the roles that he plays. He's a hands-on dad. He's been really supportive, throughout my career, and we're supportive of each other, obviously. But I think for women, for working mothers, for architect moms, a supportive partner helps a lot. That's what has helped me a lot in my experience. And, just being open-minded to playing non-traditional roles. Sometimes I'm the kind of, parent that's away on business trips. It's not, traditionally maybe it's the husband or the dad, but sometimes it's the mom, and that's okay. And sometimes it's a dad that does the diaper changing and whatever it is, non-traditional roles.
Yes.
It's an open-mindedness that comes with that. And another thing that's really important, I think, and I heard this quoted by Eleanor Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt's wife, is that every working woman needs a wife, and what that means is you just need somebody who can help with the wifely duties in quotation marks. So in my experience, luckily for me, when I was living in Trinidad, I had my housekeeper from when I was a kid moved to Trinidad to stay with me, and she really helped a lot. You're working a full-time job and coming home to do another full-time job is not easy. So
yes.
I think getting all the support you can need. And the reason why we did that is because I had no family support system in Trinidad. As you know, my husband is from Barbados. I'm Jamaican. It was really just the two of us. And I mean, friends are great. I love my friends, but it's not the same as having a family support network. So when the kids were young, it was really helpful to have someone there, just, being that support, that could help while the parents had to be at work, until, we became more independent and we were able to work from home, or, and as the kids got older, obviously they became less demanding.
Yeah.
So that's really the trick, Lizelle. I think it's balance, and I think it's a supportive structure, whether it's your mom or your siblings or grandmother or what have you. And it's not trying to do everything. I find a lot of Trinidadian women tend to want to be super women. Some of my friends are like that, work a full-time job, have to
Yes.
meet your husband's needs,
Yes.
want to do everything around the house. And I'm like,
Yes.
no, I don't, get help. You don't have to do it all. Get help,
Okay. Don't try to be
So,
superwoman.
so that's my philosophy. Get help, get all the support you can, can get. And just, women tend to want to carry a lot of the burden ourselves. And, there's no need. And I mean, society puts a lot of pressure on us as well to carry that weight without complaint. But
yes,
I think working women, in particular professional women, it's a heavier burden because there's the expectation and the guilt maybe that we feel for not being playing the traditional woman's role.
Yes.
That forces us to try to even do more and overcompensate, and it gets really complex. So I have no desire to be a superhero. So I get all of the support and all of the help. And I have, I'm like hands down to my husband. Like, I don't judge any role he chooses to play. Like, he does the grocery runs. Typically a woman does the supermarket runs, but he's really good at it. Like, he's really good. He can be on the phone and grocery shopping at the same time. I can't walk and talk at the same time. So I don't even try, and grocery stores really confuse me. So, it's little things like that, that
yes,
I don't have the need to say, well, no, I'm going to do the grocery runs because my mother used to do the grocery runs. You know what I mean? I just like, okay, you're good at it. You do that. I'm great. I will do what I can do to help the union.
Which speaks to the open-mindedness that you need to have, your partner needs to have, because then if we want to carry down the tradition of, the female doing the grocery run, then we're going to find ourselves in a sticky situation where we have to choose, and it becomes uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think having a liberated man, as your partner, or having a liberated man in your support structure helps women a lot. It's a lot of empowerment. Like my dad was really, he gave me a lot of intention. He never once said you can't do this because you're a girl. Never once. And my husband is the same, like a super feminist, really supportive of women's rights, extremely supportive of liberal, professional women. So I think I've been really lucky, actually.
Yeah, blessed. So
blessed.
Tell me about the transition now, because you spent how many years here in Trinidad?
17 years.
Wow. And so now you've transitioned into a new work environment, a different space entirely, during a pandemic.
Yeah.
Tell us what did that feel like? What did that look like for you and your family? Describe that to us.
Well, it was scary. When we just moved here, I slept for about 2 weeks. I was exhausted.
Wow.
So the reason why we relocated is to be closer to family. My most of my family is relocating to South Florida now. My mom is a resident. My grandmother is here. My brothers are here. My closest aunt and her, my cousins are here. So big family support structure here. So, and it was always the intention for the family to be closer at some point in the future. My father died about 10 years ago. And since then, I think when a parent dies, it really changes everything. You really start to think about life in a very different way. And for me, it made me really start to focus on the living parent. I miss my dad, and there was a long time where I was focusing on the absent parent. But I think after a while, I realized, what, I have my mom still. I should really think about that and stop focusing on what's missing. So that whole dynamic kind of shifted my thinking extremely, in a very extreme way, where I had this very strong desire to be closer to my family, and especially my mom as she was getting older. I wanted to be there for her. So yeah, we made the big move. And I had intended to move here summer of last year, but the pandemic hit and everything got shuffled. And nothing went as planned, basically. Everything went upside down, basically. So we had this very whirlwind departure because, as you know, the borders in Trinidad are still closed.
Yeah, they are.
So we had to leave on we had to leave we had to get special approval to leave the country, and we had to leave on a repatriation flight, and we got like 5 days notice to leave the country,
Oh
you know,
boy.
and we were in the middle of selling our house. We were emigrating with our pet cat, you know. We had like, and the 5 days included 2 days on the weekend.
Oh boy. Wow. So that's really 3 days.
It was chaotic, Lizelle. I cannot explain to you how chaotic it was. And then we didn't know when the flight would be. You know, we'd been on a waiting list, and we kind of knew it would be sometime around the end of October, but we didn't know exactly when it would be. So we'd started planning our get-togethers in the evenings, you know, within COVID restrictions.
Yes.
So every evening we had a group of less than 10 friends over, to kind of have a last drink with us and so on. And I mean, the house was upside down. The packers came in and there were boxes everywhere. And I mean, we eventually put up a tent in the backyard because there was no point in trying to entertain inside. So
oh boy.
It was so chaotic. And because we were liming late every night, you know, I was exhausted. And then the flight was like, yeah, the flight was like, we had to be at the airport for 5, but because we had a cat, we had to be at the airport for 3 to go to cargo. And
because of the cat?
Yeah, because you have to check in the pet through cargo, and that process takes like 2 hours, you know. It was, and then we didn't even know, you know, we had to get the pet permit, and I can't, you know, it's all I'm saying all this to say that sometimes you have a lot of moving parts. You don't know how you're going to make it through, but you do. And you just have to have the faith and the confidence that you will make it through. So I literally felt like I slept for 2 weeks once I landed in this country. And you know, I'm glad I had the time to decompress. Actually, I'd been teaching part-time remotely, had got graduate design studio in Jamaica. So my plan was to teach for the year, take a little break.
Okay.
Because I started university at 16 actually, and I've never like taken a break, you know. I never, you know, from school I went right through. So I thought, okay, I'm ending a big chapter in my life.
Yes.
You know, my time at ACLA was long and fruitful and rewarding and intense. And I took about a year off, just taught for a little while, and then I'd planned to start work sometime this year, you know, which I have. I started actually recently. So sometimes it's just so much going on, more than you can manage, but you know, you know, I suppose the universe never gives us more than we can bear. So we push through, and everybody's kind of settled and sane and stable.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And the kids were the most important focus during that whole time, you know, just making sure everything was as calm as possible for them. And having the cat was a big part of keeping their world safe, you know. So that's why it was so important. So yeah. Interesting journey is what I would say, but it's my last move.
Okay. Well, it's very interesting.
Not moving again. Yeah.
It's very interesting that you made that move, and you made such a big switch during the pandemic. And because I know sometimes when the pandemic first hit, you know, persons would have thought, okay, well, you know, I can't do anything, I can't live life the same way. But you made a huge adjustment in the middle of it, and it just tells me that even when life could hit you a curveball like COVID-19, you could still go on living. It might take a little extra effort. Sorry
about my dog barking in the background. Yeah,
that's fine. It might take a little extra effort, but it still can be done even through uncertain times like these. So kudos to you, architecture mom. Wow.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, I just want to add that yeah, people thought I was crazy, you know, moving first of all, and when the pandemic hit, some people thought, well, you're not going to move again, right? But I'm like, no, I have to, you know, if I don't do it now, I'll never get to it. So
yeah,
I did it, and I mean, it was scary. I thought, okay, I'm moving into a new context, new market, new culture in the middle of a global pandemic. You know, I'll never get a job, you know, I'll never, you know, like
yeah, you look at all the odds, and
I had all these
stacked against
anxieties.
you, and
Yeah, exactly. I'll never get a job. We'll never be able to find a place to live. You know, kids will never be able to get in school. But, you know, thankfully we were able to keep them in online school in Trinidad because, you know, that shift had already started happening. So during
oh,
the
okay,
whole move, they were able to kind of stay in a stable environment, even though it was a virtual environment, but it did help a lot.
yeah,
So the pandemic kind of worked in our favor in some instances. Like they would have never had the chance to be in online school
yes,
prior. You know, if we had moved pre-pandemic, they wouldn't have had that opportunity for online schooling and to keep that online schooling active while we were moving. So
okay, wow, wow,
you have to
blessings,
see the
what?
positives. Yeah,
Yes,
there
you have
there
to.
were definitely some positives to moving in the middle of a pandemic. Not that I ever want to do it again, but yeah.
No, no, we don't. Okay, well, it takes me into my last question. Well, I call it the be first questions. Looking back, looking forward, what do you take alongside you, and what are you thankful for, most thankful for? So let me start. Looking back, is there anything you would change?
Yeah, I think the one big thing that I would do differently is I would have been a little bit more consistent with my physical health, maintaining my physical health. So, you know, there were a good few years in there where I stopped prioritizing exercise and it took a toll on me. I threw my back out. I had to be in physiotherapy for months. And, you know, architects tend to have specific conditions when it comes to these things because we're always sitting down over a computer.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Architects and engineers, actually. And sitting is the new smoking. That's what it's being dubbed as now. So,
wow.
you know, I used to sit all day, work, you know, and we had long days sometimes. And, you know, after a while, it's just, you know, it affects your posture and your whole, you know, your spine. And
yes.
so that's the one thing I think I would have been a little bit more rigorous. And it's for everyone, you know, don't put yourself last. Like what I had to eventually tell myself is that I have to treat exercise like a client, you know, and I have to give it the priority of a client. And I have to plan my meetings around my exercise because my exercise is just as important as every client I have. And that's what triggered it for me. So I never miss a beat now. You know, I do Pilates twice a week. You know, I try to eat right. I try to exercise. That's the one thing I would have done differently. I would have been a little bit more conscious that, you know, not because, you know, you have work to do, you can't exercise. Yeah. But other than that, I mean, you know, thankfully my condition was a condition that I could, you know, adjust through physiotherapy and better posture. Now I use a sit stand desk. I have a proper chair, you know, to support my back. And, you know, I just try to be really conscious about my posture at all times. I know other people take on stress in different ways, you know. It could have been an internal condition that was a little bit more difficult to deal with because within the case of my dad, he had terrible heart disease, you know, and that's what eventually got him. He took on stress in an extreme way that way. Yeah.
And sometimes I feel, well, for me, confession is good for the soul. You feel so guilty sometimes knowing that you have work to do, but then you have to take time for yourself. You should go and exercise. You should go and rest. But you have work to do, and then you choose work and
we all do it. We all do it. Yeah. No, but start treating it like a client, basically, or whatever you treat the most important at work. You know, whether it be a client or whether it be your coworkers or whatever, start treating your exercise like that. You know, personify your exercise if you have to. Yeah.
Okay. And I just want to pause here. This advice is not just for the woman in architecture. This is for any professional woman. Correct? This is for those, pushing.
Don't put yourself last. Yeah. Put yourself first. Last. Yeah. Put on your oxygen mask first, right?
and press on. Next, what do you look forward to the most?
Well, I mean, you know, I'm in a whole new context. There's so much to learn. The practice I'm with now is a bi-coastal studio. So there's an office here in Florida and there's an office in California. And the projects I'm on right now are actually in California, which is really interesting, you know, social housing projects, which I think my dad would be so proud of me because that, you know, he did that. So I enjoy challenging, you know, myself to learn new things. It's something that I think I'm coming to learn about myself, that learning new things, I find it very stimulating. So steep learning curve, whole new context, whole new practice, whole new projects, whole new culture. Scary as hell, but I'm looking forward to getting to the point where I'm operating at a really efficient level, really comfortable, and very steady and stable. And obviously, I'm a really family-oriented person.
Yes.
Seriously family-oriented. I'm career-oriented, but I mean, I love, my family's number one. As my father-in-law says, any day that his job requires him to choose a job over his family, then it's time for a new job.
No, that's
so,
powerful. Yes.
I kind of live by that mantra as well. So looking forward to settling, kids settling, and just finding a balance in our new life. And from what I've been reading, I think it's 2 years. You have to give yourself 2 years when you move to a new country to really settle. So we're pacing ourselves and just taking it one day at a time, and not trying to kind of push and rush and get thrown back by disappointments.
Yeah. Wow. What do you take alongside you to get you through this transition, uncertain time, 2-year period? What do you take along with you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think just day by day, just pushing through. I mean, I think having come through the last few years and the pandemic and everything, I think, we develop a certain grit about us, where you suddenly realize, it's actually not the end of the world. Whatever happens, you can kind of, it will be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end, that kind of saying, right? So what pushes me through is knowing that, well, if this doesn't work out, then something else will, it's not the end of the world, basically. So
it's
that kind of positivity
and positivity alongside, it is what will carry you through.
And just this belief, just this belief that, it must work out in some way, shape, or form. It may not be the way that I want it to happen,
right,
but it's not gonna, end. Yeah.
So you take that faith with you that it will work out.
I suppose it is faith in a kind of a way. It's a belief system, that's it. Life will carry on. We have to kind of have that belief in place.
Wow. And so, what are you thankful for? Most thankful for? This is my last question.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I don't know. I'm just really happy to be around the rest of my family. Every weekend I can see my brother or my cousins, or my mom is in New York now for her husband's medical some medical procedure, and I was able to go and spend some time with my mom while her husband was in the hospital. And I mean, just having that freedom to see my mom and see my brothers and see my family without having to jump on a plane and fly, forever from Trinidad, I love Trinidad, beautiful place, had a lot of great experience.
That's good.
Met so many lovely people, worked on so many really nice projects. But it's just that freedom to see my family at the drop of a hat that I just can't I can't describe it, Lizelle. And it's things we take for granted. But when you've lived away from family for so long, you don't realize how much you miss your family until you see them again. It's a very strange thing. Even when I went to see my mom, I was telling my friend, even the way your mom smells, you don't realize that your mom actually has a scent until you
the little things,
and it's so comforting. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, you take the little things for granted. So
and it takes you back good memories.
Right. That's really what I'm thankful for right now, and it's priceless.
Wow. Thank Mandilee. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I learned a lot, and I'm inspired to pursue and to push on and to push through. I really like what you said about having a partner that's open-minded, and stepping away from the typical rules. I like that you stress the point about having a system of support And I see the joy in your face every time you talk about your family and that you're so close to them now. And I hear that family structure is important. I'm hearing that you don't have to choose between motherhood and the professional life. You could, but don't try to be superwoman. Don't try to be that. Get the help, get the support that you need. And making tough decisions, even in uncertain times, it's still possible once you're guided, you have wisdom. And you can still make transitions. You can still go after your dreams, even in uncertainty. And you can push through. And it's really when I think the situation is tough that you really begin to see the material that you're made of, and you pull all that you have inside to get it done. I think that's good. Thank you for sharing that and for being an inspiration. So you've been an inspiration all this time since we met. Way back, I can't even remember the year, but I really looked for you. My mom and I really looked for you because we were looking for a woman in architecture, a professional woman in architecture, and you were also a mom. And so I was just really intrigued to figure how in the world you balance everything. But you shared with us today. I hope also that you have learned a lot from Mandilee's experience. So for the ladies that are professional women and want to be mothers, so if you're a mother already, this is just encouragement for you to keep pressing forward. It's doable. With God, all things are possible. To the men, support your women in their professional life, in their home life, domestic life. You play an important role, very much, and we need your support. I just want to say again to you, Mandilee, thanks so much and happy Mother's Day to you. God's blessings over your life and the life of your family members, everybody in your family. And if you could identify with anything that was said here today, leave your comments in the chat. Share this video, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and click the bell icon so that you wouldn't miss any content. Take care of yourself. This has been a tribute to moms, architecture moms, mothers all over, wherever you are listening. Happy Mother's Day to you. Take care, be safe, and thanks for watching.